Daniela sat near the window, her eyes lost in the evening light. The street outside was filled with normal sounds, children running, people talking, cars moving slowly. But inside her heart, there was no peace. She carried a secret that no one around her could see. She loved only one man, but he was not free. He belonged to another. Daniela was not a person who wanted to hurt anyone. She was gentle, soft, and kind. From childhood, she had believed in pure love, in one person for life. But life does not always follow dreams. Life writes its own story. She met him on a normal day. He was not like others. His voice was calm, his eyes kind, his smile quiet but strong. Every time he spoke, it felt like the world slowed down. Daniela tried to fight it at first. She told herself, "No, this is wrong." But the heart does not follow rules. The heart makes its own war. The war inside Daniela was unexpected. It was not a war with guns or fire, but it was a war that burned her every day. She wanted to be strong, but every time she saw him, her strength broke. He was married. That truth was like a knife. He had a wife who loved him, and Daniela knew it. She knew she had no right to dream. But love does not ask permission. Love comes like a storm, without warning, without asking, without reason. At night, Daniela could not sleep. She would lie awake, thinking about his smile, his voice, the way he looked at her sometimes with quiet eyes. Was it only friendship, or did he feel something more? She never knew, and that mystery was the hardest part. She wanted to tell him. She wanted to shout, "I love you, I love only you." But her lips stayed silent. Her heart screamed, but the world never heard. One day, when the sky was gray and the rain touched the ground, Daniela saw him standing alone. His face was tired, as if he carried heavy thoughts. She wanted to run to him, to ask, "What hurts you?" But she could not. She only stood at a distance, her hands shaking, her heart full. The days passed, and her love grew like fire. Every meeting was short, but every second felt eternal. She wrote his name in her notebook, again and again, but then she tore the pages and threw them away. She was scared. She was guilty. She was in love. She often asked herself, why him? Why now? Why this pain? But answers never came, only silence. Only the war inside. Daniela started to hide her feelings from the world. When her friends asked her why she looked sad, she smiled and said, "I'm fine." But she was not fine. She was breaking, piece by piece. Every night she prayed. She prayed for strength, for answers, for peace. Sometimes she prayed for him, for his happiness, even if it was not with her. That was the depth of her love. She wanted him happy, even if her own heart was bleeding. But deep inside, another voice whispered, "Maybe one day. Maybe he will see me. Maybe he will love me too." That hope was small, but it was enough to keep her alive. The storm inside Daniela's heart was the beginning of a long journey. She did not know where it would end. Would it destroy her? Or would it give her the life she always dreamed of? She could not tell. But she knew one thing. This love was not a passing dream. This love was her truth. And so, Daniela's days continued, her life divided into two worlds. One world outside, where she smiled and acted normal. And one world inside, where she loved with fire, with fear, with hope, with pain. The war had begun. The war of love. Daniela tried to keep her life normal, but her heart made every day difficult. She went to work, she met her friends, she smiled when people talked to her, but deep inside she was lost. Love had become her secret world. No one around her could see it, but it was always burning inside her chest. Sometimes she stood in front of the mirror and asked herself, "Why do I love him?" She listed reasons to stop. He was married, he had a wife, he had his own life. But every time she tried to fight the feeling, it only grew stronger. It was like trying to stop the sea with her hands. Impossible. He was kind to her, always respectful. He spoke to her with patience, sometimes even with a warm smile that made her heart race. But he never crossed the line. That made things harder. If he had been cruel, maybe she could have stopped loving him. But he was not cruel. He was gentle, and that gentleness tied her heart to him even more. One evening, Daniela's friend noticed her silence. "You look sad," the friend said. Daniela shook her head quickly. "No, I'm fine." But her friend kept watching her. Daniela changed the subject, but her heart was heavy. She wished she could tell someone, but she was too afraid. What if people judged her? What if they called her a bad person for loving a married man? She was not bad. She just loved, and love had no rules. The hardest moments came when she saw him with his wife. Once, she passed by the park and saw them walking together. His wife laughed at something he said, and he smiled. Daniela froze. Her chest hurt so much that she had to turn away. Tears filled her eyes, but she walked fast, hoping no one saw her pain. That night, she cried in her room. She whispered into the dark, "Why can't I stop? Why can't I forget him?" But love does not listen to reason. It was already too late. Her heart was his, and she could not take it back. Days turned into weeks. Daniela lived with a strange mix of hope and fear. Every time she met him, she felt alive. Every time she was alone, she felt broken. She wanted to confess her feelings, to tell him everything. But the fear of losing him kept her silent. One morning, she saw him sitting alone outside a cafe. His eyes looked tired again, the same way they did before when rain touched the ground. Something inside Daniela moved. She wanted to go to him, to ask what was wrong, to comfort him. But she stopped herself. She stood at a distance, watching him drink his coffee slowly. She wondered what thoughts lived inside his mind. Did he ever think of her? Did he ever feel her love, even without words? Her heart whispered yes, but her mind whispered no. And between those whispers, Daniela felt trapped. She was like a bird in a cage made of feelings, unable to fly away, unable to be free. That night, Daniela wrote in her diary. She wrote about her love, her silence, her pain. Page after page filled with her truth. She pressed her pen hard, as if writing could release her heart. But when she finished, the paper was full of words, and her heart was still heavy. She closed the diary and held it close to her chest. "One day," she whispered, "one day he will know." The story of Daniela's love was still only beginning. She did not know that her feelings would soon take her to places she never expected. The war inside her heart was only growing stronger. And with it, the hope that maybe, just maybe, love would find its way. Daniela's life became a quiet battle every day. She woke up with his name in her heart, and she went to sleep with his face in her mind. Even small things reminded her of him. When she saw a book he liked, she thought of him. When she heard a song on the radio, she imagined his voice. Everything around her was a shadow of her love, but love in silence is heavy. It grows like a secret tree inside, with roots deep in the heart, but no one sees the branches outside. Daniela carried that tree alone. One afternoon, while walking home, she saw him again. He was on the other side of the street, carrying a bag, moving quickly. Daniela's heart jumped. She wanted to call his name, but she stayed quiet. She only watched him until he disappeared into the crowd. It was like watching the sun vanish behind clouds, warmth leaving too soon. That night she sat at her desk, staring at her diary. She whispered to herself, "I cannot live like this forever." She wanted more than just silence. She wanted him to know her heart, but fear held her tongue. Fear of hurting his wife, fear of losing his friendship, fear of destroying everything. Her heart and mind fought every day. Her mind said, "Forget him, move on, find someone else." But her heart answered, "There is no one else. Only him." Weeks later, Daniela was invited to a friend's small party. She did not want to go at first, but her friend pushed her, saying, You need to live a little, Daniela. Come with us. She agreed. At the party, she tried to smile, to laugh, to act normal. People talked, music played, and lights glowed in the room. For a moment, she forgot her sadness. But then, when she turned, she saw him. He was there. He stood near the door, speaking to someone. Daniela froze. Her hands shook and her heart pounded fast. She had not expected to see him there. He looked calm as always, but when his eyes met hers, something happened. He paused for a second, almost as if he was surprised to. Daniela quickly looked away, but the air between them felt heavy. She felt his presence in the room, even without words. Every laugh, every sound, every light seemed far away. Only he was real. Later, when she stepped outside for fresh air, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned, and it was him. He smiled. Gently. "It's good to see you here," he said softly. Daniela's heart nearly broke in that moment. She wanted to tell him everything. She wanted to say, "I love you." But she only nodded and whispered, "Yes, it's good to be here." The silence between them was deep, almost louder than words. The night air was cool, the stars above clear. Daniela looked at him and felt her soul screaming inside, but her lips stayed closed. He looked at her with kind eyes, then said, "Take care of yourself." And with that, he walked away. Daniela stood alone under the stars, her chest full of pain and hope. That small moment was nothing to the world, but to her, it was everything. She knew now that her love was not going away. It was growing stronger, and the story was only beginning. After the night of the party, Daniela could not forget his words. "Take care of yourself." Such simple words, but from his lips, they felt like a treasure. She repeated them again and again in her mind, as if they were proof that he cared, even in a small way. But with that joy came pain. The more she thought of him, the more she realized how impossible her love was. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his wife beside him. The image stabbed her heart like a knife. One Sunday morning, Daniela went to the church near her home. She sat quietly on the last bench, her head bowed. She did not pray for herself this time. She prayed for him. She asked for his happiness, his peace, his health. Even if she could never have him, she wanted his life to be safe. When she left the church, she walked slowly through the park. Children laughed, couples held hands, and the air was full of life. But Daniela felt empty. She sat on a bench, looking at the trees, when suddenly she heard a voice behind her. It was him. He smiled when he saw her. "You come here too?" he asked. Daniela nodded quickly, her heart beating fast. He sat beside her, and for a moment, they both stayed quiet, listening to the sound of the world around them. Then he spoke softly. "Sometimes life feels heavy." "Do you know what I mean?" Daniela turned to him, surprised. His face was calm, but his eyes carried something deep, something unspoken. She wanted to ask what was wrong, but fear stopped her. Instead, she whispered, "Yes, I understand." That was the first time he had shared even a small piece of his feelings with her. Daniela felt both joy and sadness. Joy because he trusted her enough to speak. Sadness because she still could not say the truth inside her heart. The days after that moment were even harder. Daniela felt closer to him, yet still so far. She dreamed about him at night. She thought about him every hour of the day. Her diary pages filled faster now, full of his name, his words, his smile. But the more she loved him, the more dangerous her silence became. It was like carrying fire in her hands. One wrong step, and everything could burn. One evening, while walking home, Daniela passed by a small bookstore. She stopped when she saw him inside. He was looking at a shelf, turning the pages of a book. Daniela stood outside, hidden, watching him. He looked peaceful, as if the world's problems disappeared when he read. Suddenly, his wife entered the store. She touched his arm, and he smiled at her. Daniela felt her chest break again. She turned away quickly, walking fast down the street, tears burning in her eyes. That night, Daniela cried harder than before. She whispered to herself, "I cannot do this anymore. This love will destroy me." But even in tears, even in pain, she knew the truth. She could not stop. Her love was like the air she breathed. It hurt her, but it kept her alive. And deep inside, a dangerous thought began to grow. A thought she had never allowed before. What if I tell him? What if I confess my heart? That thought scared her, but it also gave her a strange kind of hope. War inside Daniela was reaching a new stage. She could no longer live only in silence. Daniela's heart could no longer stay quiet. Every day felt heavier. The fire inside her was growing too strong to hide. She tried to control it, but her hands shook whenever she saw him, and her voice trembled whenever he spoke to her. One evening, Daniela sat by her window, watching the stars. The night was silent, but inside her chest there was a storm. She whispered to herself, Tomorrow I will tell him. I cannot carry this love alone anymore." But the next day came, and fear stopped her again. She walked past him, smiled, and stayed silent. The words in her heart died on her lips. She hated herself for being so weak, yet she also feared what the truth could bring. Would he be angry? Would he turn away from her forever? Would he think she was trying to destroy his marriage? The questions tore her apart. A week later, fate decided for her. Daniela was walking home when rain began to fall. She ran to a small bus stop for shelter. To her shock, he was there too, standing alone, water dripping from his coat. Their eyes met, and the silence between them was louder than the rain. "You're wet," he said softly, taking off his scarf and handing it to her. Daniela's hands shook as she accepted it. His kindness broke the last wall inside her heart. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. He looked at her, surprised. "Why are you crying?" he asked gently. Daniela's lips trembled. The secret she had held for so long rushed to escape. Because I love you," she whispered. The words finally broke free. The rain fell harder around them, but the world felt frozen. He looked at her, his face unreadable, his eyes deep and silent. Daniela felt her heart stop. She wanted to run, to hide, to take the words back, but it was too late. The truth was out. For a long moment he said nothing. The sound of rain filled the air, and Daniela's tears mixed with the drops on her face. Finally he spoke in a low voice. "Daniela, you shouldn't have said that." Her chest broke. She wanted to explain, to say she never meant harm, to say her love was pure. But no words came. He looked away, his jaw tight, his eyes distant. "I have a wife. I have a life. You know that." Daniela nodded quickly, her tears falling harder. "I know," she whispered. "I know, but my heart, I cannot control it." The bus arrived, its lights bright in the rain. He stepped inside without another word. Daniela stayed behind, holding his scarf close to her chest, her heart torn into pieces. That night, she lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, her soul heavy with pain. She had finally spoken, but the truth had not set her free. Instead, it chained her deeper. For the first time, she wondered if love was not a gift, but a punishment. The days after Daniela's confession were heavy and silent. She avoided the places where she might see him. She felt ashamed, broken, and small. Every time she remembered his words, "You shouldn't have said that," her heart cut deeper. But love is not a switch that can be turned off. Even when she tried to bury her feelings, they came back. His face lived inside her memory. His voice echoed in her heart. One afternoon, while walking through the park, Daniela saw him again. He was with his wife. They looked calm, talking quietly as they walked. Daniela froze, hiding behind a tree. She wanted to cry, but no tears came. Instead, A strange calm filled her. In that moment, she understood something. Love is not always about possession. Love is not always about being together. True love is also about wishing happiness for the one you love, even if it is not with you. Daniela closed her eyes and whispered, "I love you. But I will let you go." That evening, she opened her diary for the last time. She wrote, "I loved only him. My heart burned for him, but love is not mine to keep. I will carry this feeling quietly, like a secret flower inside me. I will not let it destroy me. Instead, I will let it make me stronger." She closed the diary, placed it in a drawer, and walked to the window. The sunset painted the sky with red and gold. For the first time in months, Daniela breathed without pain. Her heart still carried love, but it was no longer a war. It was a lesson. She smiled softly to herself. She would live, she would dream, and maybe one day, someone would love her the way she had loved him. But no matter what, she knew one truth. Her love had been pure, her love had been real, and even if the world never knew, her heart would always remember. And so Daniela's story ended not with marriage, not with possession, but with quiet strength. She had loved, she had lost, but she had also grown. Because sometimes, the greatest love story is the one that teaches us how to live without the one we love.